Hi there, Artemis from the Cwicly team. In this video, I will be sharing how to create a pop-up with the use of a modal element. Pop-ups are a great way to engage a potential customer and a great way to catch their attention, especially if your message pops up before they decide to leave. However, it is essential to limit the use of pop-ups because they can cheapen the look and feel of a website, and they can even bore the customer if they are constantly bombarded. One intentional pop-up is much more striking than an overload of them. The pop-up we will be building together today is extremely simple to build and set up. We went for a standard pop-up look, however, we decided to have two ways in which this pop-up is stimulated. The first is a subtle info icon in the left bottom corner, which subtly hints to the user to push on it. This is my preferred use of pop-ups because to the user it feels like they triggered it of their own will. The second is, when you go out of the section, the pop-up comes up in case the user hasn't seen the info icon. Let's get building. Here we are in the Gutenberg editor on our Dobra layout, which you can find in the Cwicly design library. We will be building our pop-up for our hero element since it's the first element seen when users come on our website. It's the most useful place to have it. Let's start by adding our info icon to our hero. Let's give it a size of 50 pixels and give it a white background color to pop out against our black. Let's give it some padding in the spacing tab of 15 pixels. Next, in the borders panel, round our corners with a 15 pixel radius. We want our icon to be placed in the left bottom corner, so let's head to the Advanced tab and navigate to the container layout and select a position of absolute. And let's also place it 25 pixels from the bottom. Let's toggle the Define as Link property and set it up for our modal. Let's select Edit Link and select Action. Our source is modal. We will leave the open type because that's exactly what we want. That is, for our pop-up to open when we click on our info icon. We haven't made our pop-up yet, so we can't fill in the block ID, but we must not forget to add it once we have built it. Now it's time to actually build our pop-up. We will be using a modal block, so let's add it to our layout. It is perfectly normal that we see a dark grey section. This is replicating the user's viewport/document body. Before we give our pop-up a width or height, let's select a vertical direction, select Flex Start for our blocks in our pop-up to be placed on the left, and use the Space Around property. Now let's head to the Modal Style tab. This is where we get to control how our pop-up looks, where it will be displayed on our page, and we can select if we want an overlay or not and customize its color. So let's give our pop-up a 50% width. As you can see, we can't see our pop-up, let alone its size and width, but that's because we didn't give it a background color. So let's do that right now with the background color property. Now we can see our pop-up. I don't want our pop-up to be in the top left corner, but in the center of our page. So let's head back to the Modal Style property and center our pop-up in the Align and Justify property. Before we add our blocks, let's quickly round our corners by heading to the Advanced tab and into the Borders panel. Let's give a 15 pixel border radius. I will add my family font now, that way all the child blocks of the modal will have the same font family without me needing to add it every time. Since our pop-up is black, our text elements need to be white to be seen, so let's select a white text color. Now let's add our blocks. First, we will need a div because I want our H2 heading and exit icon to be in a row direction, which means next to each other instead of on top of each other. Selecting our div, let's select a horizontal direction and Flex Start and the space between property. Now let's navigate to the Advanced tab and into the Container Sizing tab and give it 100% width. Now let's add our H2 55 pixel font sized heading and our 30 pixel sized exit icon. For our heading, let's head to the Advanced tab and into the Container Sizing panel and give it a 75% width. Selecting our exit icon, we can toggle the Define as Link property and select the same properties as our previous linked icon, except that we will choose the close type in order for our pop-up to be exited. We can add our pop-up's ID and add it to our info icon that we made earlier. Now let's add our 35 pixel font size paragraph. Next, we will add a div where our two buttons will sit next to each other. So let's select the horizontal direction and center it. Let's duplicate with the linking feature the buttons that we use in our hero and throughout our design. Because our buttons are linked, our original buttons had a bottom margin because they were on top of each other. Let's get rid of this margin in the margining padding panel by unlinking the bottom margin and setting it to 0 pixels. We must add our first linked buttons class to our second linked button because when we modify the first, we wanted to modify the second. Our button that says no thanks can be made into a link and edited in the same way we did with our exit icon. Our pop-up really needs some padding and margins. Let's select our pop-up and navigate to the Advanced tab and head to the Margining padding panel. Let's give it a 45 pixel padding. Now selecting our first div, let's give it a 115 pixel bottom margin. Now selecting our paragraph, let's give it a 20 pixel bottom margin. Let's select the No Thanks button and give it a 15% left margin. As always, we need our pop-up to be responsive. On tablet view, let's select our pop-up, head to the container sizing and give it a 70% width. Next, let's select our heading and give it an 85% width and bring down its font size to 40 pixels. Let's bring down to 30 pixels our paragraph font size. Let's also bring down our buttons font size to 18 pixels. On mobile view, let's bring down our headings font size to 25 pixels and our icon size to 25 pixels. Let's also bring down our paragraphs font size to 22 pixels. Lastly, selecting our buttons, let's bring down their left and right padding to 15 pixels. As you can see, our pop-up still looks oddly shaped, but that's because we have to readjust its size to 95% in the container layout. Now that our pop-up is fully responsive, we need to make it look more lively and animated when it comes up, because for the moment it lacks smoothness. So let's head to the Modal Animation tab, where we will give our transition pop-up a 0.6 seconds duration to make it appear and disappear smoothly. As I said in the beginning of the video, with this pop-up we want two different ways in which this pop-up is stimulated. We already have our info icon trigger, but our exit trigger is missing. To quickly and simply add it, all we need to do is to head to the Modal Trigger panel and select from a variety of options on Exit Intent property. Now we have a fully responsive pop-up that can be triggered in two different ways. Now that we have finished our modal, if we wanted to continue designing our layout, it would be easier to do that without seeing the modal, since in the front end the modals are not seen. We can easily do this with this hidden modal feature. Now we have a fully responsive pop-up that can be triggered in two different ways. Thank you for watching this video, and if you have any question whatsoever, please write it down in the comment section below. Bye!